Hey everybody, it's Dave here from Dragonhill Games, and you're watching This Week in MTG Finance. As always, and before we get started, I want to thank MTG Stocks for allowing us to use graphical information for the purposes of this video. It's been kind of a crazy week in MTG Finance, and we've got some wild weeks coming ahead of us with all this stuff we're going to be getting over the course of the next few weeks and months, namely Jumpstart, Double Masters, and then of course Zendikar Rising, but we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later in the video. For now, let's dive right into our top 10 list, and we're going to start right here with Retribution of the Meek. So taking up the number 10 slot this week and up 56% at $11, Retribution of the Meek is still a really great bargain. This is kind of a technical board wipe, so it's 1 white and 2. At sorcery speed, we destroy all creatures with power 4 or greater. And what I mean by a technical board wipe is it fits really well into certain sort of go wide strategies, especially revolving around white, of course. So you basically fill up the board with a bunch of wimpy creatures, throw Retribution of the Meek out there, get all of the big stuff out of your way, and then you can kind of just take over the game with your go wide strategy. Now at $11, and considering it's on the reserve list, is actually a great bargain. It's still less than half the price of its all-time high. Now coming in at number 9, we have Coastal Piracy, the Jumpstart version, valued at $5, and this is up 63% this week. Basically what's happening here is this is just getting in line with the other printings of Coastal Piracy. Of course, we had the rare 8th edition version, and then the original printing from Mercadian Mask. Both of those are valued in the $5 to $6 range. It makes sense that this is just kind of lining up with the prices of the other printings. Now we are going to be getting an extremely limited supply of Jumpstart, especially in the first few waves, but we'll talk about that closer to the end of the video. Now, Coastal Piracy is just one of those cards that's really amazing for Commander, especially in some sort of creature strategy. For 4 mana, we get an enchantment, and whenever a creature we control deals combat damage to an opponent, we may draw a card. Now, coming in at number 8, we have Birthing Pod from New Phyrexia, currently valued at exactly $26, and this is up 67% this week. It's the only true printing of this card. I mean, we had a Judge promo, but that doesn't really affect supply. Man, Birthing Pod used to be part of some really awesome combos in Modern. Geez, I remember going heads up against this kind of deck a lot back in the day. Of course, Birthing Pod went on to get banned in Modern, and that's why it ended up being around the $3 to $4 mark. So the reason we're having such a massive spike on Birthing Pod and some of the other cards on our list this week is because the speculators are out in full force. That's right, we're going to be getting a banned and restricted announcement from Wizards very shortly, and they have specifically said they're going to be targeting the Modern format. So people are on the hype train thinking that things like Birthing Pod, of course Splinter Twin is always there, might end up getting unbanned. So they're getting on board now and picking up these cards before they go through the roof. Now, our number 7 winner this week, Door of Destinies, is kind of interesting to me. This card has been on the rise since around 2015. It would have been a great investment if you picked it up in this kind of range here. This sort of 2-year slot between 2015 and 2017 was really kind of the prime target range for this card. But this is the kind of card that just sort of keeps creeping up in value. It has massive demand, especially in tribal decks for formats like Commander. Door of Destinies for just 4 mana, we get an artifact, and then of course when it comes into play, we choose a creature type. Now, whenever we play a spell of the chosen type, we put a charge counter on Door of Destinies, and then the creatures of the chosen type get +1/+1 for each counter on Door of Destinies. It's had quite a few printings, namely a Commander 2017 printing most recently, and then a massive reprint in Magic 2014. Now you can still get those for around the $10 to $11 range, so that's definitely your best bet if you need to pick up yourself a Door of Destinies. There's been a lot of excitement and interest around tribal strategies again lately, especially with some of these cards like Allosaurus Shepherd and some of these Minotaurs and Goblins we've been seeing from sets like Jumpstart and Core 2021. Our number 6 winner is a really awesome card coming out of Jumpstart. So that's Zerzoth Chaos Rider, and it's currently valued at $34.50, and this thing's up 73% this week. Now, Zerzoth is 3 mana for a legendary devil, and whenever an opponent draws their first card each turn, if it's not their turn, you create a 1/1 devil creature token. Now, of course, these devils have, whenever they die, they deal 1 damage to any target. Even more interesting, whenever you attack 1 or more opponents with 1 or more devils, each of you's draw and discard. So this guy could get really out of control even on his own, but imagine sticking him into some kind of deck with something like Doubling Season or Parallel Lives, Annoyed Procession, whatever the case may be, or even just something like Osiris the Writhing Storm where you're going to be wheeling a lot. Man, you can get a lot of devils out of this guy. It could get out of control really fast. There's a lot of awesome new legendary cards that are going to fit into a lot of really cool commander strategies coming out of Jumpstart. So it's no wonder there's going to be such huge demand, and the prices are going crazy on both Jumpstart singles and sealed product. Goblin Sharpshooter made the list this week again, this time in the number 5 slot, and it's up another 77% this week. Currently valued at $16.25. Of course, this thing works really well with something like Conspicuous Snoop. Goblin Sharpshooter, 3 mana, it doesn't untap during your untap step, but whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, untap Goblin Sharpshooter, and then of course you can tap it to deal 1 damage to a creature or player. It works really well with things like Goblin Recruiter, and then of course Conspicuous Snoop. Taking up the number 4 spot, we have another speculative play, and that was Splinter Twin, the Modern Masters 2015 version, currently valued at $18, and this is up a 77% this week. So every time we have a banned and restricted announcement, especially if something like Modern is going to be targeted, of course cards like Splinter Twin come out of the woodwork. There's kind of 2 different camps with Splinter Twin. It was really busted back in the day, but a lot has changed in the format of Modern and just Magic in general since the banning of Splinter Twin. I think we have a lot more answers nowadays. Things like Fatal Push and stuff like that are in Modern. So Assassin's Trophy, all kinds of 1 and 2 mana answers that can easily deal with creatures or Splinter Twin itself. So I think Splinter Twin has a place in Modern. I think it would spice things up in Modern, get a little bit more variety going on in Modern, and I'm in the camp that I believe they should unban a Splinter Twin. That said, I understand the arguments on the other side as well. I played back in the day when this deck was at its peak, and this deck was a terror. Going into turn 3, they would just flash in something like Pestermite or Deceiver Exarch, and then on their turn 4, of course, hit it with the Splinter Twin and go ahead and win the game. So it was definitely a deck to be feared. It was kind of a deck that came out of nowhere when you were playing against it, especially in game 1. So I can see, like I said, the arguments for keeping Splinter Twin in the vault for sure. Now there is another printing of Splinter Twin. We have the Rise of Eldrazi version around the same price in the $19 range. So interesting that this announcement is coming up right before we're going to be getting all of the sort of double masters spoilers. It wouldn't surprise me if Splinter Twin actually does get unbanned, because that would be something they could easily throw into double masters. Our number 3 winner this week is Elvish Promenade, specifically the Dual Decks Anthology version. Currently valued around $6, and this thing's up 83% this week. It's no wonder we're seeing Elf Ball type strategy cards on the rise, considering that we're getting some really awesome cards from Jumpstart, like Allosaurus Shepherd. There are a few other printings of Elvish Promenade, and you can get those for a little bit cheaper if you're looking at something like the original Allura printing at around $350. With all of these new shrines from Core Set 2021, it's no wonder we're seeing some of these older shrines on the rise, especially the good ones like the white and blue one for sure. Hondo Cleansing Fire is up 293% this week, and that's specifically the Eternal Masters to $2.25. Of note and of interest, you can get the Champions of Kamigawa version, which is the original printing, for way under half of the price of this Eternal Masters version, which I find very interesting. To me, it's always, I prefer to have the original print, especially if I can get it for around the same price. So it's interesting that a reprint from a fairly recent set, Eternal Masters, is more than double the value of the original printing. There has been this really bizarre and frankly mind-boggling demand for some of these really old sets like Arabian Nights, Antiquities, things like that. Repentant Blacksmith is up 717% this week to $186.50. For a card that sees absolutely no play anywhere, you can get other reprint versions for under 20 cents. This thing's not on the reserve list. This just blows my mind. But like I said, all these commons, sort of uncommons, even unplayable cards like this have seen a massive price spike over the course of the last few weeks and months. And this is purely speculative and collector-driven demand. All right, before I get into cards I'm investing this week, as always, if you're a subscriber, you know I want to thank you for being here. I really appreciate your support. And if you would like to help support this channel, I've included an Amazon link in the description of this video. And whether you're using that link to buy a brand new frying pan or an awesome playmat you just can't find at your local game store, using that link really helps support this channel. I want to kick things off by talking about sealed Jumpstart product. And I want to approach this from both a player and collector standpoint and from a store owner's standpoint. Now, as a store owner, I was expecting to get most or all of the Jumpstart product I had ordered, but I found out last week that me and of course all of the other game stores in the world are going to be heavily allocated on Jumpstart. So much so that in the first week with Jumpstart's release, I'm only getting 6. That's right. 6 boxes, not cases, boxes of Jumpstart. And the following week in the second wave, I'm getting a whole, get ready for this, 4 more boxes. So between the first 2 weeks of Jumpstart's release, I'm going to have 10 boxes for my customer and for my store. That's not even enough to cover my pre-orders on this product, let alone for gameplay weekend. And up here in Canada, we are having some gameplay. I am in my store anyway. I can't speak for every store, but I'm limited to 10 people, so I'm having 8-player tournaments, things like that at my store. So I don't know as a store owner how I'm going to get through a Jumpstart play weekend, let alone fulfill the pre-orders I have for this product. So that said, from the player and sort of collector standpoint, the prices on Jumpstart are going through the roof. And this is because of this crazy allocation and low supply we're getting of this product. Now, this is a funny product and it's at a funny time. Remember, it's only 3 weeks from now and we're going to be getting double masters. So here's kind of the train of how everything's going to happen with Jumpstart. Next weekend, we're going to be having the release for Jumpstart, and everybody's really allocated. So of course prices are through the roof. I mean, over here on eBay, and now this is lowest price including shipping. I mean, packs are going for like, what's this, $36 to your door for a single pack. I mean, boxes are going for $245 shipped to your door. Now, these are Canadian prices, so I can't speak for what you're going to be paying in other countries. But $245 to $250 range, even if you go over to something like Channel Fireball, doesn't even have it listed on their website. I mean, they must have oversold themselves to the point where they can't even list it on their website for sale. Up here in Canada, one of the biggest suppliers is Face-to-Face Games, and they have it at $250 Canadian for a box of Jumpstart. These prices are astronomical as compared to where they should be. Now, of course, there's some really amazing stuff in Jumpstart, and that is definitely what's driving the price. That combined with the fact that it's been so heavily allocated. So again, let's go back to the train of how Jumpstart is going to be released into our hands. Next weekend, everybody's going to have a very limited supply. Probably most stores don't have enough to cover their pre-sales. Then we get a very small second wave, which puts us into sort of the end of July. Now, there is probably going to be a third wave of this. How big that third wave is, I honestly can't say. But by the time that third wave comes around, we're going to be into double masters. So what is the interest that's going to still be in Jumpstart? It's a terrible product in the terms of the actual play value of Jumpstart. I mean, yeah, it's going to be really fun and sort of interesting if you're just looking for an alternate way to play Magic, or maybe you're a new player or something like that, need to get some cards. It's kind of a cool idea, but realistically, these sort of supplementary products that are alternate ways to play Magic generally don't do very well and don't really get used for what they are intended to be used for. What everybody's into Jumpstart for is some of the awesome commander cards, things like a Lorosaurus Shepherd, Tiny Bones, those types of cards. These are the high demand cards that are going to be in Jumpstart. And oh yeah, there's things like Reanimate and Shieldred, the Whispering One, and a whole bunch of other awesome reprints that we need as well. So there's massive demand for Jumpstart, super allocated right at the beginning. I mean, personally, for me, I think $250 a box on this stuff is pretty crazy, but it may actually end up being a fair price considering the fact that by the time we get our third wave, there's going to be into double masters. So who's going to be still buying Jumpstart? I don't know. This is a really funny situation. As a store owner, I've never really been in this situation before, so I kind of wanted to just put this out there to give you guys something to think about regarding Jumpstart. All right, as far as cards I'm investing in this week, we've got kind of a land theme going on this week. So I've recently sold out of Cabal Stronghold from Dominaria. It's the only printing of this card. At $3.25, this card is a great investment. It's been trending up since around the middle to late of last year. Perfect for Commander, Fits in the right types of decks, especially stuff like Tiny Bones, one of the new popular commanders from Jumpstart. Getting on board and getting into a Cabal Stronghold at $3.25. You're never really going to see this card for any cheaper than it is today. Up next, we have Blast Zone from War of the Spark, continuing with our lands theme, also priced at $3.25, and this card is just starting to turn the corner. So sort of bottomed out around the $3 mark, and we're up a little bit from there. As you can see, we're starting to trend upwards. There's not really any more War of the Spark getting opened. This kind of card fits into a bunch of different decks, usually as a one of things like Tron and a bunch of sort of modern Pioneer and even Legacy decks. And of course, you can always throw this into something like Commander. So getting a Blast Zone at $3.25 is perfect long-term investment. And rounding out lands this week, we have these castles from Throne of Eldraine. They're actually all pretty good. I think Castle Garenbrig is probably the worst of the bunch, but even that one sees quite a bit of play. The great thing about these lands is they get play in all kinds of formats. Virtually every format they could see play in, they do. And if you remember, I've talked about these castles a lot in the past, especially in the latter part of last year. Castle Ardenvale, at the time when I talked about it, you could pick up this card for like 50 cents, and the borderless version was like $2. Now we're sitting around the $7.50 mark for the borderless version and close to $3 for just the regular version. All of these castles are trending up. They're all still really good value in comparison to where these lands are going to be going down the road. So jump in now while you have the chance to pick up most of these lands for under the $3 mark. And last but not least, we have our speculation play for the week. That's right, it's Doom Foretold from Throne of Eldraine. Currently valued at just 50 cents, this card's a great pickup for 50 cents. I always like cards that could be played well in Commander, and Doom Foretold definitely fits in that category because it affects each player during their upkeep. Doom Foretold was from Throne of Eldraine, so it's going to still be in Standard for quite a while yet. So being able to pick these up at 50 cents is a real bargain and a great investment for the future. All right, I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode of This Week in MTG Finance. If you did, go ahead and smash that like button. It really helps me out, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.